Hi, I'm John Storms. Today, what I'm going to be going over is how to actually set up the Light-O-Rama Show. So we've done a series of tutorials on how to do sequencing, and sequencing is lots of fun. But a lot of times what happens is, and this happened to me on my first year, I spent so much time sequencing, and then when it came time to actually start the show, it's like, okay, well, I got all these sequences. Well, now what do I do with them, right? And you don't want to be rushed to set up your show at the last minute. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the different steps in order to take care of that. All right, so I have some slides. I'm not going to follow them the whole time. This will kind of help me stay organized, and I will make the slides available so people can reference them. The Light-O-Rama software really has two main functions. The first one is creating sequences. It's like an SDK. You can, create, edit, new sequences and effects and that sort of thing. But the second objective of the software, the second function of the software, is actually running the show. Okay, it's a whole nother use case scenario for it. And so what we're going to be talking about in this tutorial, or if it gets too long, series of tutorials, is how we actually use the Light-O-Rama to run the show. Okay, so there's a key concept we want to talk about. So the first key concept here is that you have channels, right? Channels are in sequences, and then sequences are in shows, and then shows are in the schedule. Okay, so we got this little picture over here. You have the schedule, and then within the schedule you can have multiple shows, and then within the show you have multiple sequences. Okay, that's an important relationship to remember as we're talking about all these different things. Okay, so let that one burn into the back of your brain pretty good. So shows are nothing more than a collection of sequences, and you can specify different sequences to do certain things, but basically sequences are in shows, and then shows are in schedules. Okay. Okay, so schedules, shows, and sequences. Oh my. So basically, wow, this is wrong. Now it's even wronger. I'm messing it up. Okay, I'll skip that slide. We'll just get right into it. So we're going to start with creating Light-O-Rama shows with the show editor. Okay, now basically the show editor just is a collection of sequences. You can specify some of them to run at the start. You can specify some to run the end. You can specify some that just run the entire time in the background, and then there's the actual show that runs as a loop in the middle. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up the show editor. Close my Dropbox. All right, so I have the Light-O-Rama control panel running, so I can come up here and select show editor. Okay, now there is a wizard that will set up shows for you, but this really is so easy, there's no reason just to do it here. Okay, so you got the big buttons along the top, but the things that we care about here are the tabs. Each one of these tabs represents a list of sequences. So background are sequences that are going to be run in the background during the entire show. So you ask yourself, well, when would I want to do that? So let me show you an example of a background sequence that I've used in the past. So let me pull up the sequence editor, and I'm going to say I want a new musical sequence, and the song I want is, check this out, "20 Seconds of Silence." Okay, I'm the author. I want 2 channels, no timings. Okay, so in this sequence, what I want to do in the background is I want to run, let's say, my radio and my sine. Okay, now my radio is on channel 6.15. Okay, I'm actually going to put my radio on one of the channels. So I say 6.15, and then the sine, which I want to be on anytime the radio is on, I'll say is on 6.14. Okay, 6.14, and I want them to be on. Now they're on. So I can say save as I'm going to just call everything here AAA. Sign and radio. Alright, so I close that out. And say background. Oh, I think these have to be animation sequences. Is that true? Hang on. It is. These have to be animation. List the animation sequences that were run during the entire show. Okay, no bother. See, I learned I learned a little bit here as we go too. It's one of those things you don't do very often, so you kind of remember it as you go. So animation sequence, me, to, and how long should this animation be? We'll call it a minute. That's fine. Use a fixed timing grid. Yeah. Don't add any timings actually. Okay, now I come in here. This is the radio. This is the radio on 6:15. Okay, and then this is the sign on 6:14. Okay, and now I simply turn them both on. Save. Again, this is going to be sign and radio. And this is an animation. The difference between animation and a musical sequence is that animation has no sound. Alright, now I can come in here and I can add sign and radio, animation sequence. So what will happen is, now I'm going to hit save because this is going to be my show. Call this the big show. So what will happen is when this big show is playing, the sign in radio will be going the entire time that my other sequences are playing. Okay. Now I can have a startup sequence. All right. So this is my big show of the year. This is the one where I have everybody out in the front with the chairs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to have. This is what it's going to start off with. And I got this really fun countdown timer. Let me see if I can find it. What? Okay, I just have to find it by hand. Looking for my binary clock. There it is. I know I saw it. Binary countdown. So I'm going to do the 5-minute binary countdown. What this does is my trees will actually be on or off in binary, and it counts down second by second until it gets to 0 and it starts the show. It's kind of cool, and it's in binary. Okay. And it doesn't play, I don't have it set up so it doesn't play any music. So let me open that up so you can see what that one looks like. Let me close this one out. See, I have my tree set up, and there's a decaying pattern here. Okay, if I go to File or Edit, Media File, see, it doesn't have one because this is a animation sequence. Let me see if I can show you what it looks like. Make this smaller. Okay, so I got the trees here, right? And I hit play, and see what it's doing? It's counting down in binary. So now this is going to shift over here. See, this decays down to nothing. Now it's going to shift down to these three, bang, and it just counts down binary. It's kind of cool because, we got some nerds in the neighborhood and they can identify, oh, it's a binary countdown. And you can kind of get a feel for when the show's going to start. So anyway, it's kind of cool. Okay, so I have a binary countdown. That's really the only thing I want to do. Now, some people say, well, why don't you add like the Clark Griswold opening up the show? Well, if I'm going to loop the show, I actually want that as part of my musical section. So so we have background, which runs the entire time. We have run startup, which runs at the beginning, and it's going to run, if you can put multiple sequences here, but it's going to run all of them to completion. Then it will start musical. Now you can do animation. I've never really used animation. I have it in the slides, but basically it's the same thing. You can have a list of animations and you can play these concurrently or sequentially. Okay, we're getting to a point where it's good to go back here so that we can review some of the safety rules. Oh great, I've lost my network connection. Even better. Stupid AT&T. Here it is. Okay. Some strong guidelines when you're setting up shows. It's possible to make it so multiple sequences run at the same time. Like, for example, the background sequence can be running at the same time as the musical sequences, the startup and the shutdown sequences. You can have the animation sequences running all at the same time. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have the same channel in two different sequences that's playing at the same time. You'll get unpredictable results, you won't be able to figure out why, and then we'll see you whining about it on the forums. So don't use the same channel in multiple sequences that are running concurrently. So when I set up that one sequence to use the sign and the radio, and that's a background sequence. That means it runs during startup, throughout the body of my show, as well as the end. I don't use those channels in any other sequence. That's the only place they show up. If you use them in multiple places, it'll cause you problems. The other guideline is turn your lights off at the end of each sequence. This way, between between songs, things don't get messed up. And certainly on the shutdown, you want to make sure that in particular is checked. You don't want to come out at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning and see, that all of your lights are still on. It's embarrassing. Okay, let me minimize this. So now we're at the musical sequence. This is the heart of the show, and this is fun. Now you have some options here. One, you can turn the lights off at the end of each show, and I always keep that checked. And you can play them in order. So you get a whole list of songs, and you can say play in order, or you can say shuffle them, and you get some shuffle options. I kind of like to dictate the order of my show. So I come in here, and I want to find, let's see, it's one of my bumpers, Hallelujah. This is the one where Clark Griswold, puts the extension cords together, and it does a cool thing. Then I like to move straight into the Christmas Vacation theme song. I can't find it. Oh, which one did I put in here? Okay, I got the right one. I got the 2014 one. So now I put in here, I want to find Christmas Vacation. Really? Here it is, Christmas Vacation. I like that being my second one. And then the next one I want is Joy to the World. Okay. And now we do this song. Now I had troubles in my first show because this Let It Snow and Let It Go look really close. And so I had Let It Snow twice and no Let It Go, and the little girls are just about crying. And I had to go fix the show on the fly. And we'll show you how you can do that with the schedule editor. And now we want to have like a lead in for Jingle Dogs. Jingle Dogs was actually mentioned in the Christmas Vacation short story written by Hughes. So let's see, this is Let It Go. I want the bumper about feeding the dog from the table. Where is it? Feeding the dog. With Cousin Eddie. See, I just keep hitting this add button and I find all the songs that I want. Jingle Dogs. And then if you don't like the order or something, like you say, this Let It Go, I really want to put that to the end, you use these arrow keys and you can move them around. Okay. Cleanup sequence, you can actually specify a sequence that will, I think it's run after each song. Typically, it's not used though. Now, let's see. Let's say you wanted to do a voiceover sequence. Okay, what you would do there, because sometimes a voiceover is nice, but you tell people not to turn around in your driveways and other uncool things like playing their radios too loud. So let me pull open the sequence editor and let me see if I have an old voiceover. Actually, I'm going to say new musical. Let's see, they usually don't have. Let's see. Long info. This is probably a good one. Now for this one, I'm going to use my channel configuration because I want this to be a voiceover with all the lights on. So I'll just let me grab an old one. Don't add any timings. It's thinking about it, because it's a really big channel configuration. Alright, let's see, there it is. So now if I hit play.
Thanks for coming out to listen to our lights, and Merry Christmas. This is our second year doing a musical light display, and we're very happy and a little surprised by how many people.
Alright, so we have our little voiceover. Now what you can do is if you want it just to be static on, you come through here and you just turn on all the channels. Alright, I mean you don't have to turn them all on, but this is all the ones you care about. So I'm gonna say save, and I'm gonna say a voiceover. Okay, and it's saving that, and so now I got this little voiceover. Now this is also static on. If I were to just use silence, I could create a quiet voiceover, but we'll do this one first. Let me go back to my show editor. I come back here and I can say a voiceover. See that? And you might say, you know what, I want to do this a couple times on my show because I really like my neighbors and I don't want anybody doing things that's going to annoy them. So you pull it in here a couple of times and then you can place them wherever you like. Some people put them every couple of songs. I usually do it every few minutes. I'll do it like right before a really annoying song, like I don't know, Gangnam Style. Yeah, sometimes people jack up their radios pretty high in that, so I'll put it right before there. And then, it's always nice to have a nice clean ending. It's actually kind of tricky, you don't want people sticking around too long. Let's see, do I have something marked end? Red glare. See here, this is Aunt Bethany singing Rocket's Red Glare, and then the show ends. So now, maybe I want to have a sequence where, it's kind of like the voiceover, but without the lights. That way, they hear it and it's done. So I could do another voiceover basically saying, thanks for coming to the show. It's over. Go home. And the way I would do that is I would start a new musical sequence, put the audio file in, do just like we did with the voiceover, but keep everything blank. Okay? And in fact, in order to do that, you don't even need to have this. Let me just start over new musical sequence. I think I might have something in here. I think it's called Folks. That's all, folks. Okay, I'm going to say no timings. I'll just do the minimum one channel. No timings. Bang. Okay, now you play it.
That's all, folks.
Now I could sequence it if I want to, and I have, but in this case I just want it to be quiet. Just let people know the show's over. So I can say a dark show's over. Okay. Now some people would say, "Oh, you should put that down in your shutdown." Yeah, I like it here better because if the show's looping, then people understand it's the end of the show. I kind of designed the show to kind of have a certain flow to it, and it's nice to be able to use that. So there we go. So I have this loop of things that I want to do. Now, let's say that for some reason somebody got a hold of one of your videos and a whole bunch of people watched it, and then all of a sudden all of Central Texas wants to come to your house, and you're really not set up for it, and you're trying to get people to cycle through a little bit faster. One trick that you can do is, right here I have Let It Go. Let's say that's the song everybody wants to see. I'll come in here and I'll add Let It Go a couple of times. Let me add it one more time. Okay, so I'll put one of them right before Gangnam. I'll put one of them right after Christmas Vacation, and then I'll put another one here right after Feeding the Dog. Okay, so what happens is some people will come to watch the show, they'll be sitting out front, you're going through the songs, they hear Let It Go. Well, that's the song they came for, they heard it, they leave. Now if they're sitting there and let's say they want to listen to all the songs, a lot of times they'll listen to the song, hear it again, say, oh, I must have heard everything, and then they'll move on. Now if you have, it's really nice to have people come and listen to all the songs, but if you got a line of cars backed up around the street, you kind of want to move them through. Okay, so that's the musical tab, and it will play all the way through this, and when it's done it will start over again until the show is scheduled to end. Interactive, I have a video describing the input pup, and also the slides go into this to some degree. Basically what this is this is sequences that you can have triggered by a switch. Okay, so the circuit closes and then you can have a sequence go off. Again, it's another opportunity for concurrent sequences. And then shutdown is when the show is done, meaning you got to the end time or you've given the signal to end the show gracefully. It will then start going through whatever sequences you have in the shutdown sequence one by one until it's done. Okay. Now sometimes if I have a really annoying song that's causing problems for the neighborhood, I don't want to play it all the time, but like maybe let's say Gangnam Style, I might throw it into the shutdown sequence so it plays once before the show ends, so people had a shot at it. But for the most part, I will leave this blank. And the only reason I have the startup populated is because this is my big show. This is the one I use to kick off. So in this show, I have the startup sequence so people can see it. Now, since this is my big show, when the show's over, I want to have the lights just solid on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself another new sequence. Okay, musical sequence. And okay, so I got this 20-second, 5-second, but I really want it longer than I want 4 minutes. Now where do I get these? This is an MP3 that literally is nothing but quiet. Okay, so let me go and configure. I'll pull up a recent channel config. I don't want any times, I just want to have it on. Okay, now if you want to generate your own silent track, here's how you do it. You open up Audacity, and it's going to take a little while for it to load the channel config in there, so I'm going to run Audacity while it does it. And you go to Generate, Silence. How long you want to generate silence for? Let's see, hours, minutes, seconds. So if I want to do it for 1 minute, 5 seconds, this is what it looks like. Now when I play it, you hear that? It's silent. And you can save it as an MP3 file, and then you can use it as a media file for your song. This one I have a 4 minute. Okay, and again what I want to do is I want to just turn everything on. Now I'm really smart, and if you watch the sequencing class, you'll know that I got these different tracks up here, and I can come over to tricks, and I have everything, which isn't really everything, but it's everything I care about, and I just boop, drop it in there. Since I don't have any timing marks, it does it for the full 4 minutes, and it turns on everything. And I say save as static all on. And no matter what you're doing for a show, this is just a handy thing to have. Having a show where you just turn on all the lights. Okay, so at the end of the show, I'm envisioning people all happy and euphoric. It was a wonderful show, and they're really happy that they came, and they want to get some pictures. So in my shutdown sequence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the static all on. And this is for 4 minutes, so that's 4 minutes, and then I'll say I'll do it again. That's 8. Okay, the pictures are starting to wind down. Now people are starting to pack up their chairs. Now we're chit-chatting about what's going on in the neighborhood and so on. So I let it go for a while, and then the lights will turn off at the end. Okay, I hit save, and this is my big show. Okay, this is the one where everybody brings out the chairs and we kick it all off. This isn't the one I'm going to run every night, because I'll start running into some problems. First of all, this background and shutdown thing are going to be problematic. And you say, why is that going to be a problem? The problem is that if I'm running the show and I want to swap the show out cleanly, like let's say I have a big show and then a smaller show, and traffic's getting busier, so I want to swap it out with the smaller show. If I say stop, it's going to go through all these shutdown songs, and then when I start up again, it's going to do this startup 5-minute countdown. And it's going to be a pain. I don't want to do that. So what I do is I say save as. So I got my big show. I'm going to have my big looping show. Okay, this is what I'm going to play in the evenings if it's not very busy. What? No, I'm doing it wrong. My big looping show. Okay, so my big looping show, I'm not going to have the 5-minute countdown. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, I'm not going to have all of this because it's a pain. And yep, if you got a lot of stuff here, you got to do them one by one. But at least for us old guys, they make the buttons nice and big. Okay, I don't want any startup and I don't want any shutdown. It just makes it easier. Now my background, I still have my sign and radio. Startup, I have a little issue. My radio takes a few seconds to warm up. Okay, so I'm going to have a sequence where it is 5 seconds all off. Okay, so this is a sequence very much like the other ones where all the lights are off and it just sits there for 5 seconds. And when this is just to give my radio a little bit of time to warm up. Now, why did I not do this in the previous one? Well, I wasn't playing any music on the countdown, and it had plenty of time to warm up. So, animation, nothing. Musical, okay. Now, musical, this isn't my big show. I'm not expecting to have tons of people here, so this is kind of when it's not a ton of people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some of these extra voiceovers, and I'm just going to do the voiceover at the beginning of the show. And that's it. Okay, and I call that my big looping show. Then I said, well, maybe I want to have a medium-sized show. So I'm going to call my next one medium looping show. And so on this one, let's say the crowds are starting to get, backed up. Well, you know what? We're going to drop these guys, the beginning and enter ones. The Christmas Vacation, I got to keep that. Joy to the World, I'm going to let go. I'm going to let it go on some of the other let it goes on the duplicates. I should have did that for the last one too. Okay. And I'm going to drop the bump. I'll leave the bumper there. Okay, so this is my medium show. So usually a medium show, I'll have a few more songs than this. Of course, the big show usually it goes for like 45 minutes to an hour. But the medium show is, this is people coming out. There's some traffic. You want to bear in mind you're keeping it moving and so on. Okay, so that's my big one. Now I can do another one. I'm going to have another version of my show. I'm going to call this one my crazy looping. This is if the traffic is just nuts. Like the year I had like a half-mile long line of cars and I just needed to get them through. So what I'm going to do is I have this dark voiceover, right? There's nobody there. I have the Let It Go song. And that I'm going to call it That's It. So if I wanted to process as many people through the show as possible, this is the show to do it with. What's going to happen is there's going to be the little voiceover where it says, "Be nice, everybody." The lights are off. They come up, they hear "Let It Go." The song ends, the lights go off, it's the voiceover again. People go, "Oh, okay, I've seen it," and they move on. And it just repeats that way. And that will have the maximum number of people going through the show. The year I did this, it was Wizards of Winter, and it was awful. And I was just sick of the song by the time it was done. It didn't feel like a show, it felt like an assembly line. Really don't want to do that again, but I have it here just in case. Now, sometimes you're going to want to have a couple of set shows, like, when the friends come over and they want to hang out and they want to see some stuff. The little girls that inevitably are going to want to see the Frozen stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a special Frozen show. I think I got snowmen in here. What? There it is. Do you want to build a snowman? And then, of course, just in case a boy happened to show up, we'll do the Lego movie. Okay? And so usually I'll have a set of songs that represent my best of for the show. Okay? And of course, the background, I'm going to have my radio. Now, if you have your radio hooked up so that, you just turn it on or you have it on a timer, that's fine too. In this case, I have it set up like this. So this one I'm just going to save as AAA Frozen. I don't want to be in the save. I don't want to save it in Hawaii. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here too is I'm going to have another show I'm going to create. So I just hit new. Background again, I'm going to have did I save something in here? Hang on. I sure did. I saved it in the wrong spot. That needs to be in sequences. Okay, so I come over to sequences. No. I'm losing my place. Oh yes, there was another show I wanted to create. Okay, so background, I'm going to add my little radio thing. Okay, sign in radio. Actually, where's that? Sign in radio. And then, actually no, I don't need this. I'm not going to run the radio in this part. I'm going to create a show that just has my static all on. That's all it's going to do. Now sometimes what I'll do is I'll have semi-static sequences, one where like the house is doing the wave back and forth, maybe up and down, maybe a couple of things twinkling, that sort of thing, and I can put in multiple here and they kind of go between each other. And of course for their audio they're just using the silence, the MP3 that I would have created. And so I just have this static on and that's it. Okay. And I'll just let that play on over and over. That's the way if I want to set it up so that I have a static, whether I just want to have the lights on static, I can run it like that. Okay, so I'll call this a static on. Okay, you see? And I got all of these shows. So now I got myself a pretty good gaggle of shows. Now let me make sure that I haven't missed anything important here. Can't believe my internet went down on me in the middle of going over this. So let me see if it's back up here. It is. Okay. Okay, so we talked about what you can do with the show editor. We talked about, there's a good one coming up here. Okay, so here we kind of review what the different things do. We talked about the guidelines. We talked about, oh yeah, we should get around to this one. This one will help you optimize your show. So if you have the show editor, you come over here to options. This first part allows you to trigger some stuff. Um, Probably talk about this in a different video, but sequence loading, you have two options when you're loading your sequence. You can say load the sequences right when you need them, or load all the sequences before they are played. Now some of my sequences get pretty good, so in order to avoid having a delay, like a minute delay between songs, I'll say load them all up at first. So it takes a little bit of time at the beginning, but nobody notices, and then it loads them in the memory and plays them from there. The other thing that you can do is between songs, if you have like a whole bunch of musical sequences, and let's say you're running these you have it optimized so it loads them really fast, you may actually need to put 1 or 2 second delay in between your songs, just so that one doesn't stop and the other one starts right on top of it. Because sometimes, if you have strobes, those strobes are still firing and then the next song takes off. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a pause between songs. Okay. Um, so that's a good one. That's keeping myself honest. The other thing is save means go. So if you have a show and let's say it's living in a schedule and that it's active, when you hit save, let's say you've modified the show. When you hit save, it's active from that point on. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind, that save means go. In this tool, the show editor as well as the schedule editor. Okay, we talked about background sequences, we talked about the startup, animation, musical. Okay, we talked about these tips. There's the interactive one. I have the link to the video there. Shutdown sequences. Now here I just want to re-emphasize, you want to have a real ending to your show. You don't want to leave people in limbo sitting out in their cars going, is it over? Is that it? It kind of leaves kind of an awkward feeling at the end of the show. You want to tie it up nice. You don't want to be like that show Lost where the ending was just awful. You want to tie it off. There is a simple show builder. I've never used it. I think the show editor is easy enough in itself. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to talk about for the show build, for the show part of it. The next one, and I think I'll do this in a separate video, is we'll talk about the scheduler, the schedule editor, and how to use that. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up there for this one.